I think it's very, very relevant for us to connect all of the community networks with other areas of the commons, as Julia said. I think for example, next week we're organizing a European Commons Assembly in Madrid with Media La Prado, which is the agency of the Madrid local government. And there will be a special workshop on the internet and data in municipalities. So I think that it's very important, and it's very important to make connections with people doing urban planning, with doing local agriculture, all that. So it's part of the agenda. Up till now, it hasn't been a part of the agenda. The energy cooperatives, the urban gardening, urban agriculture has become part of the agenda in these, let's say, alternative networks. But I think little by little, I think in Barcelona it has become part of an agenda because of your great work. What has happened on a European level is a type of tautology. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. As you said, there's no evidence of what, how many people they're serving, what gap it's doing. It's all very quantitative. I think we need a qualitative analysis as well. But since there's no evidence, and since they're very small because there's no regulatory support. And there's no more regulatory support because they're very small. And it just, we don't, in many areas of our political work, this happens. So it's like we're always going to be marginal. On a research level, I think there are a number of programs here like, the peer-to-peer value, the netCommons, your program, Descent that you're all involved in, that is doing some great work. But I think it has to break out of the shell, come out of the ghetto, and become, like Julia says, more mainstream, to give our opinion on the big issues, like the whole telecom package and the whole telecom code, and not just to stay in our little area. So my idea is what we have to do, we're in very troubled times. I think there's a lot of urgency. I don't know what someone said about resilience. Someone saying about learning how to use the technologies in times of catastrophe. I was just thinking about in northern Spain now with their great fires and all this, how the villages are going to rebuild their communications. All of that is important also for rebuilding ecological, environmental things. Unfortunately, I think because of crises, we're going to need these decentralized things, not just for democracy, not just to build the commons, but also to deal with crisis. And lastly, I think we don't have a regulation, a legal regulation, an economic regulation for the commons in general, and especially for community commons. We have for big private companies, we have for this controlled by the state, but in between, there's nothing. It's a desert. It's a desert. And I think that legal gap, we have to start. I know that in Italy, Ugo Mattei has just published a real interesting book about filling that gap of the legal commons. But I think that we have to start thinking of that as well. How are we going to find the legal basis for everything we're doing here? Otherwise, we're always seen as Martians. Okay.
Well, thank you everybody for coming. I hope indeed that this event will be seen in a few years as a starting point of something a bit bigger, and that will manage to make community networks visible at the policy level. Thank you to Mrs. Kumpalanatri, Reda, and Mr. Bove for welcoming us at the EU Parliament. And yeah, we all look forward to continue the discussion in the months ahead. Thank you.